Again, I'm John O'Donnell. I'm Principal Solution Architect here at AWS. I've been here for 7.5 years, so this is my seventh reinvent. And I cover the HCLS healthcare and life sciences sector. This year, I've been working with Ron on some healthcare and life sciences specific content. There's a few sessions you'll find on the Angel Beat as well as YouTube where we cover some of this type of stuff. So this is going to be more kind of a high level review of databases and analytics, and as you know, as Nick, had mentioned earlier, right? Like there's just too much to cover. So what I'm gonna do is kind of do like a Whitman sampler for the season, right? To kind of just give you a little sample of small, medium, and large type of announcements. So let's jump in. So databases, everyone uses databases. So this is a list of databases. You're not familiar with everything we have. This is the most up-to-date, actually captured this from but we basically have relational databases, document databases, NoSQL databases, in-memory databases, quantum ledger databases. I don't even know what that means, but we have those, right? So there's a lot of really great stuff out there that we have. So if you need a database, these are all tried and true services. So let's jump into Aurora Postgres Limitless. So again, if you're not, I'm going to define each service. You're not 100% familiar with it. This will just give you a very basic 100 level type of level of it. So Amazon Aurora is a fully managed relational database system. It runs in our RDS, or relational database service. And it's compatible with MySQL and PostgreSQL. And it's basically high performance, high availability, commercial, but it's leveraging open source. So if you're using open source, you're familiar with those, you can take your applications and just run it in Aurora Postgres / or MySQL. So the big news today is PostgreSQL Limitless. It's basically a serverless offering. So instead of traditional databases where you only could scale, up, keep throwing more hardware, storage, right? They were very tightly coupled, right? This breaks that apart. It's kind of a new paradigm as far as how databases work. And allows you to scale basically really massive write throughput in a traditional relational databases. You can distribute writes and reads across multiple transaction routers. So basically what it's allowing to do is like run massive parallel processing against a database without having to write massive parallel processing code. If you've done that in the past, it's extraordinarily painful, but this is all built in. It does sharding. It'll support sharded tables, reference tables, and standard tables, right? So sharding basically is breaking the data up across different locations to improve performance. And again, the really cool thing is kind of just the really simple, relatively simple, assuming you know PostgreSQL and those type of things, the parallel processing, the ability to pull a massive amount of data across various locations together. And this is now in 10 regions, so this is pretty much global, and it supports PostgreSQL 16.4 and above. So a really cool thing to check out. If you're even remotely familiar with Postgres, it's a great thing to check where you can do some really massive scale. So Amazon DynamoDB. So this is our managed NoSQL database. It's millisecond type performance, single digit millisecond performance. It's very popular for kind of cloud native developers, right? So a lot of developers are using this as kind of where their starting point. So DynamoDB has been out for several years. It's certainly one of our most popular database offerings. So there's warm throughput. So when you basically stand up a DynamoDB table, I'm going to play a little video here you can kind of watch. But you need to set basically the name, the partition key, and the store key. And if you're familiar with NoSQL databases, these are pretty standard, but basically just ways that you can search on that. But what you had to do before was you had a kind of a auto scale approach for DynamoDB. But it took a little while for the kind of auto scale to kind of catch up, and then kind of catch up, to scale you up as well as to scale you down, right? So you can basically build this is a little warm up here, but I can have kind of, if I'm planning a massive event, say it's a year end or a big sale, right? I can warm up my database, have it ready to go. And as soon as I flip the switch, boom, it's ready to go. And again, DynamoDB is already like crazy, massively fast, right? Just think about this adding just immense new capabilities to it. So you still have to know kind of proactively that you're going to have a burst of activity, but it's very easy to do versus having to, well, let me guess, let me see what this is, let me worry about auto scaling, right? So it's a nice little way to kind of pre-warm things for that. So you already saw that. So another cool thing, again, just because the nature of DynamoDB is strong consistency. So most DynamoDB by its original nature is eventually consistent. You write something to a table, kind of eventually gets there. It takes its time. It would take a few seconds to kind of, in the old school SQL world, kind of commit to the table, right? And then multi-region was, again, you could have what called global tables that I would write to say US East 1 in the States. I want to replicate it to Ireland or something like that. I'd write it here. Eventually we get over to Ireland, right? But if I'm doing global queries and I'm calling both databases, they would sometimes be out of sequence, right? So this record exists, doesn't exist quite here. Oh, it shows up here. I'm modifying the one in Ireland, right? This one's out of sequence, right? So what this is going to allow is multi-region. What's important, and as Nick covered, kind of our resiliency hub type of thing, like resiliency and security are obviously huge, and that's why we have our speakers here. That I can have redundancy and resiliency and 5 nines of availability. Like that's pretty impressive in a global type of approach. And I can write multi-active writes. I can be writing to both regions simultaneously, and they're both kind of writing back and forth to each other. And again, DynamoDB is super fast, low latency, and I don't have to write a new code, which is like amazing. I don't want to have to write new code to take advantage of what, to me, this is a game-changing type of change. So, oh, and by the way, we lower prices. So like that's another big thing for reinvent to pay attention to is you're gonna do the same thing and hopefully pay less next year going in. So I won't read the numbers, but DynamoDB is relatively inexpensive to do if you're not doing massive scale, but the prices are coming down. So again, this global type of thing, this global strong consistency is important. And again, from a disaster recovery RPO, RTO type of approach, like this is zero RPO. There is no loss in data. As soon as that data is written, it's written somewhere else. So again, pretty cool stuff. MemoryDB multi-region. So MemoryDB is, if you're familiar with Redis, this is Redis with persistent storage, right? So basically it's a large in-memory database, like massive amounts of memory, but I'm also be able to persist it in that database and then bring it back. It's again, very quick. You use it for, again, traditional use cases like caching, session management. If you ever take any of the AWS certification exams, that's always the answer for Redis is session management and gaming, right? So again, a great service, nanosecond read latency. It's hella fast, right? I mean, it's super cool. And as soon as I write to one region, within a second, it's going to write to the next region, right? So again, you think about a caching database that can be globally, can take global writes and have single millisecond writes as well as, nanosecond type of reads. So again, super impressive. Gives you 5 nines, is available in 12 regions in both Valkey and Redis flavors. So again, really cool way to improve the performance of your applications when you kind of real-time processing. Oracle, everyone's favorite. Oracle, we already work closely with Oracle as far as on our relational database service. So you can spin up an Oracle database in RDS and start doing Oracle work. But we have a new partnership working with Oracle where you can move things in such as Exadata or Oracle RAC. If you're familiar with them, you know how impossibly difficult they are to move and to put into new locations. But we're working very closely with Oracle to make that less of a challenging thing. So you can literally lift and shift your on-premise Oracle workloads in AWS. Why? Why wouldn't I just take it to OCI? Because data is the center of gravity for everything you do, right? So if I'm gonna move my databases, I want to keep them close to my applications, close to my analytics platform. Oracle realizes that, and we're working very closely together. It's very low latency. All these services, all these Oracle applications, the Exadata RAC, can also natively talk to AWS applications. So familiar to the VMware announcement that Nick had. I'm basically taking another vendor's tool set and and allowing native access. So again, super impressive with that. How do you get it? You get it through AWS Marketplace, which I won't go into, but basically, if you purchase this through Marketplace and you have a PPA or EDP, if you basically have an enterprise agreement with us, this can draw down on your commit to AWS. So it's a win-win-win for that. You can BYOL it. So again, if you work with Oracle, Oracle's really big into licensing and complexity there, but you can leverage your Oracle licenses as well as use Oracle discounts and support rewards. So it's a really great service. So if you're sticking with Oracle, but you want to get out of your data center, this is really the best approach. It's in preview now and it'll probably launch in a few months, but definitely look at this if you're an Oracle shop. So Aurora serverless. This is an interesting announcement. Again, this is part of like the sampler I have. This is maybe a smaller announcement, but one of the challenges, we had Aurora serverless, but if I didn't use it, I was still paying for use runtime, right? So that was one of the challenges of Aurora serverless v1. It wasn't quite serverless, I would say. The serverless v2 scales truly to zero, and if you're not using it, you're not paying for it, which is great. So this is a great thing, basically a really nice service for developers, for backup, right? So it takes about 15 seconds. I won't go through all the details, about 15 seconds to kind of spin this up. But if you're using it for failover, if you're using this for development, if I'm using this for other types of like cost sensitive type of use cases, it's certainly a way to go. So again, truly scaling to zero, and all of our services are kind of marching truly in that direction. So this is a nice little thing. Again, the usage, you'll still pay for storage. You always pay for storage because storage isn't free, but you won't pay for the service until you spin it up. So again, if you have developers using this, they go home on the weekends, you stop paying for it, right? So again, a really nice built-in thing to have. And again, I would say like a cost-effective, frugal architecture is a good architecture, and using services like this is a really good way to not only be cost-effective but also have a good architecture. And the big kahuna announcement that our CEO, Matt Garman, launched at his keynote is Aurora DSQL. And this is like super cool. And Bert reminded me kind of some of the stories I heard about this, but this is like truly like changing time and space, right? So we had, I believe Tesla was one of our customers last year. They had a need for this truly global database that was PostgreSQL compatible, where I could write to multiple regions simultaneously, right? We built a whole new time service sync to get down to like nanosecond level time sync, right? To build this service, right? So this service would not exist without this whole other time service being built and being leveraged, right? AWS has also built out optical cables that actually speed up the transmission of data. I don't remember the exact number, but the speed of light is still a constant. Like Einstein is right about that, but they're able to push through the glass fibers. They've found a new way to increase the speed. But this is serverless. This is, again, truly global. It's kind of using a traditional kind of like replication witness region, if you're familiar with kind of like, again, massively scalable approaches for that. But again, it's active. Again, anybody who work in any type of architecture, active is always very difficult to do. Boom, here's active. You're up and running very quickly. This is available in 3 regions. And it's ready to test out. So it's a little basic right now, but I see great growth for this service as it goes on. So that's the database announcements. Again, any questions, throw them my way. Let's jump into analytics. So analytics, we have a laundry list of services. Again, it won't cover all of them, but there's a lot out there. And again, all these have little announcements. Again, I kind of just cherry picked the ones I thought would be of interest for the group here today. So if you're familiar with MSK, Amazon MSK, if you're not, so that's our managed streaming service. So MSK it's a fully managed service that basically simplifies running Apache Kafka. So if you run Kafka, you can run it on-prem, you can stand up your own EC2 instance. It's complicated, right? This takes away a lot of that complexity from you. So think about kind of like an RDS type of equivalent where it's a managed service, but you can still do a lot of fine tuning with it. There's a new offering called Express Brokers that are, I think in traditional reinvent style, better, faster, cheaper, right? So it's 3 times more throughput. So before, to kind of do really massively scale, you might have to set up multi-region, multi-account type of approaches with this. This is building in a significantly higher performance type of access to Kafka to the to the streams. 20 times faster scale. I mean, that's pretty amazing. So it can basically scale up 20 times faster. And then again, reducing recovery time, the ability to kind of recover data, et cetera, by 90%. So again, if you're a Kafka, if you really like Kafka, great. If you don't use it, look into it. Certainly a way to go. Change data capture for database with Firehose. So Amazon Firehose is basically, again, another fully managed service. It allows you to capture stream data and then persist it to either databases, S3, other types of storage areas. Very, very popular if you're using streaming. So I work with a large financial services company up the street, leveraging data Firehose, where I was taking stock trades and writing them to S3 with that. It now supports Apache Iceberg, which again you probably have heard of in the data space. AI, you'll hear more when my friend Harish is up next. But we're building AI into all of our applications. So if you've upgraded Glue in the past, so Glue is basically our managed service for ETL. Going from version 3 to 4 was actually very painful. I've gone through that, and basically because of the Spark code. So what we've offered basically is built into Glue is ability to provide an analysis, right? So this is similar to where it's going to look at the code, it's going to give you recommendations, it's going to help you modernize that and get you into the new platform, do validation and all those type of things. So again, very nice way to speed up your move into a modern platform. You'll want to know about this because, boom, we have Glue 5. So once you figured out Glue 4, now we have Glue 5, right? And this is, again, truly amazing. So I've been working with Glue since it came out again in 2018, I think it was. It's super fast. It's less expensive. So better, faster, cheaper than Glue 4. Again, if you're doing any ETL work, if you're taking data and doing traditional ETL, Glue is the tool to use. It's really great. And again, it's pay as you go. And it's leveraging Spark and things like that you're probably already working with. So again, really great as far as doing that. We've also added, again, Iceberg, Delta Lake, and Hootie, right? Table formats that didn't exist before. So as the service matures, it's making it way easier to get from here to there. So again, if you're not using Glue 5, look into it, because again, Glue, I came from the old school of having to write code even before things like Python existed, right? To do ETL. This really makes your life way easier. And you can do visual and automation. You can visualize, use visual tools to build this. You can write code, but Glue is really one of frankly, our best services out there. So clean rooms gives the ability for companies to kind of share data without me giving you all the data, right? So if you have, say, a pharmaceutical company, you want to have maybe some of your customers, your partners mine that data, maybe do some machine learning against it, et cetera. The old way is like, well, let me give you all my data, and then boom, the data is gone, right? This allows you to actually query the data without having access to the raw data, right? Which is really cool. So you get query outputs and things like that. You, as the owner of the data, can give rights and privileges to people where they can do some things, not other things. But again, if you're sharing data, if you have critical data that is really the lifeblood of your business, clean rooms is certainly something to look at. And the updates are, again, adding multi-cloud. So Snowflake, you've heard of Snowflake, right? Snowflake is now built in. Awesome. There'll be more coming, but Snowflake is the first. Then also the ability to do machine learning, adding custom models and those type of things, inference on this data. So really great service to have. And last but not least, and this will hand off to Harish to kind of go into much more detail with this, Amazon SageMaker Unified Studio. So before Gen AI is only good with really good data, right? With bad data, it's hot garbage, right? So Amazon SageMaker Unified Studio pulls together all of our tools. So we just talked about Glue, Athena, Redshift, all these different tools that we have out there. Harish is going to cover Bedrock and some of our Gen AI services, right? But think about this as a unified service to pull in all your data to do processing, analytics, model development with SageMaker, which again he'll cover. Also builds in the streaming. So I talked about MSK, that's built in. So all the ability to kind of do things with your data. I think Nick talked about OpenSearch, right? Kind of, the ability to pull in these massively scalable applications and databases are all in one unified approach. So this is cool. Like this is truly game changing. Where before I had to go around to kind of move data and kind of hop, skip, and jump, and it was a very kind of, I would say, somewhat awkward experience. The goal that this is truly unified. And from a data perspective, the back end of this is, again, these are all new services. Again, I'm not even scratching the surface as far as what's coming out in this area. But SageMaker Lakehouse, it's basically a lakehouse is a series of, if you're familiar with data lakes, data warehouses, it's just a bunch of data in a place that you can access it. But this is a unified way, again, for you to access data in S3 and Redshift, federated data sources, and other companies. For wherever the data is, this allows you to get to it, and you can leverage things like EMR, which are Elastic MapReduce, Hadoop, right, type of technology. And I won't get into the details, but this is, again, this lakehouse, it makes all the data available. Once you have the data in here and it's scrubbed and it's cleaned, that opens up basically unlimited value with generative AI. So again, good data, good generative AI. So with that, thank you. And I appreciate your time.